When a ruthless HOA president terrorizes my pregnant wife over petunias, demanding $67,000 and wishing death on our unborn child, she makes one fatal mistake: she never asked what I do for a living. Some verdicts are served cold. Mine was served from the bench. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I sat in the back row of the small claims courtroom. My pregnant wife Sarah trembled beside me, her hand clutching mine so tightly I could feel her pulse racing. She was 7 months pregnant, her belly round beneath her simple blue dress. Tears streamed down her pale cheeks as we waited for our case to be called. Across the aisle sat Margaret Henderson, the HOA president of our neighborhood. She wore a crisp red suit, her gray hair pulled back in a severe bun, her thin lips curled into a satisfied smirk. She kept glancing back at us with pure venom in her eyes. 3 weeks earlier, our nightmare had begun with a simple knock on the door. Sarah had been planting flowers in our front garden when Margaret stormed up our driveway, her face twisted with rage. I was inside working from home when I heard the shouting. "These flowers are not on the approved list." Margaret's shrill voice pierced through our windows. Section 4, Paragraph 12 of the HOA bylaws clearly states that only pre-approved plant species may be displayed in front yards. I rushed outside to find Sarah standing there, dirt on her hands, confusion written across her face. "They're just petunias," my wife said softly. "They're beautiful and harmless." "Harmless?" Margaret's eyes bulged. "You're destroying our property values. I've been president of this HOA for 15 years, and I will not allow some pregnant nobody to disrespect our rules." The way she spat the word "pregnant" made my blood boil, but I kept my composure. "Mrs. Henderson, we'll check the bylaws and resolve this calmly." "Calmly?" She laughed, a cold, cruel sound. "You have 24 hours to remove those flowers, or I'm filing a lawsuit. By the time I'm done with you two, you'll wish you'd never bought a house in my neighborhood." Sarah's eyes filled with tears as Margaret marched away. My wife had been so excited about those flowers, spending her morning making our house feel like a home. Her hands shook as I helped her inside. "Why is she so angry?" Sarah whispered. "What did we do wrong?" I held her close, feeling our unborn daughter kick inside her belly. "Nothing, sweetheart. We did nothing wrong." But Margaret Henderson wasn't finished. The lawsuit arrived 4 days later. Margaret had compiled a 47-page document listing every supposed violation we'd committed in the 6 months since we'd moved in. Our trash can was visible for 3 minutes past pickup time. Our car was parked 2 inches over our driveway boundary. A package sat on our porch for 1 afternoon. Each violation carried a fine. The total? $67,000. Sarah collapsed when she read the number. I caught her before she hit the floor, her face drained of color. "David," she gasped, her hand on her belly. "The baby. We were saving that money for the baby. We'd spent 3 years saving for our daughter's future, for her education, for a safe start to her life. Now this monster wanted to take it all." Margaret began a campaign of terror. She filed noise complaints when Sarah hummed while gardening. She reported us for suspicious activity when I brought groceries in after dark. She sent certified letters threatening additional legal action every single week. The stress was destroying my wife. Sarah stopped sleeping. She stopped eating properly. Her doctor warned that her blood pressure was dangerously high, that the stress could harm the baby. I watched my vibrant, joyful wife transform into a shadow of herself, jumping at every sound, crying at every letter in our mailbox. One night, I found her in the nursery we'd been preparing, sitting in the dark, sobbing as she held a tiny pink dress we'd bought for our daughter. "She's going to take everything," Sarah whispered. "Our savings. Our home. Our baby's future. Why does she hate us so much?" I made a silent promise to my wife and unborn child that night. Margaret Henderson would not win. Whatever it took, I would protect my family. The harassment continued for 3 months. Margaret's lawyer sent increasingly threatening letters. They demanded we appear in court or face default judgment. They threatened to seize our assets. Sarah's condition deteriorated. She was put on modified bed rest. The stress caused early contractions that sent us to the emergency room twice. Each time, as I held my wife's hand while doctors monitored our baby's heartbeat, my rage toward Margaret Henderson grew. But I said nothing. I revealed nothing about who I was. I simply documented everything, photographed every letter, recorded every interaction, and waited. The court date finally arrived on a cold Monday morning. Sarah insisted on coming despite her doctor's protests. "I need to face her," my wife said. "I need to look her in the eye and ask her why she wants to hurt us." We arrived early. Margaret was already there with several other HOA board members. They all turned to stare at us as we entered, their expressions ranging from pity to contempt. "Look at her," one woman whispered loudly. "She's probably faking the pregnancy for sympathy." Sarah's hand tightened on mine, but she held her head high as we took our seats. Margaret approached us, her lawyer trying to pull her back. She leaned down, her face inches from Sarah's, her breath hot and angry. "You should have just followed the rules," Margaret hissed. "Now I'm going to destroy you. I'm going to take your house, your savings, everything. And when your baby is born into poverty, you'll remember that I warned you." Sarah's face crumbled. Tears poured down her cheeks as her whole body shook. "Please," my wife begged, her voice breaking. "Please, my baby." "The stress." The doctor said. "I don't care about your baby," Margaret said coldly. "I don't care if you lose it. Maybe that would teach you to respect your betters." The words hung in the air like poison. Several people in the courtroom gasped. Sarah made a choking sound, her hand flying to her belly protectively. I watched my wife's face turn white, watched her lips tremble as she tried to process the cruelty. That's when something broke inside me. Not my composure, that stayed intact. But my willingness to remain silent shattered completely. "All rise," the bailiff called. The Honorable Judge David Morrison presiding. I stood, helping Sarah to her feet as confusion rippled through the courtroom. Margaret's lawyer looked puzzled. Margaret herself frowned. Then I did something that made every person in that room freeze. I walked toward the bench. "Your Honor," Margaret's lawyer began, then stopped, his mouth falling open as I stepped up to the bench and took my seat. The bailiff handed me my robe. I put it on slowly, deliberately, letting the weight settle on my shoulders as I looked down at the courtroom. Margaret Henderson's face went from smug satisfaction to confused concern to dawning horror. "I am Judge David Morrison," I said clearly. "I've presided over the county court system for 8 years. I took a leave of absence 3 months ago due to personal family matters. Those matters were the harassment, intimidation, and psychological torture that the plaintiff, Margaret Henderson, has been inflicting on my wife and unborn child." Margaret's lawyer frantically flipped through papers. Margaret herself had gone pale, her hand gripping the table. "You can't," she started. "I can," I interrupted, my voice calm but carrying steel. "And I will. Mrs. Henderson, you've spent 3 months trying to destroy my family. You've filed frivolous lawsuits. You've threatened my pregnant wife. You've caused her medical complications that could have killed our daughter. And 30 minutes ago, in this courtroom, you told her you didn't care if she lost her baby." Sarah was crying softly behind me, but they were different tears now. Tears of relief, of hope, of vindication. "Your Honor," Margaret's lawyer stood shakily. My client was speaking in emotion. "She didn't mean." "I have recordings," I said quietly. "Everything. Every threat. Every letter. Every conversation." Mrs. Henderson documented her harassment in writing, which was helpful. She also didn't realize we installed security cameras, so we have video footage of every interaction. I turned my attention to Margaret, who looked like she wanted to run but couldn't make her legs move. Mrs. Henderson, you picked the wrong family to terrorize. Not because I'm a judge, that's almost irrelevant. You picked the wrong family because we're good people trying to build a life and prepare for our daughter. You decided that your petty power was more important than a human being's well-being. You decided that flowers in a garden were worth destroying someone's mental health. But this isn't about revenge, I continued. This is about justice. Mrs. Henderson, you filed a lawsuit against me and my wife. That lawsuit will be heard today. However, given my conflict of interest, I'm recusing myself. Judge Patricia Walsh has agreed to hear this case immediately in courtroom B. She's waiting for us now. I stood and removed my robe. I'm appearing as a defendant and witness, and my wife will testify to the impact your actions have had. Judge Walsh has reviewed all the evidence I've compiled. She's reviewed the medical records showing my wife's stress-induced complications. She's watched the videos. She's read the letters. Margaret found her voice. This is entrapment. You were investigating me. I was documenting your harassment of my family, I corrected. Every piece of evidence I gathered would have been available to any other defendant. The only difference is that I knew what I needed to collect. If you'd known who I was, you would have backed off, then started again with some other innocent family. This ends today. We walked to courtroom B, followed by Margaret, her lawyer, and a growing crowd of spectators. Judge Patricia Walsh was already seated. She was a stern woman in her 60s, known for her no-nonsense approach and particular intolerance for bullies. I've reviewed the evidence submitted by Judge Morrison, she began. I've seen things that disgust me as both a judge and a human being. Mrs. Henderson, you filed a lawsuit claiming $67,000 in damages. Is that correct? Margaret's lawyer answered. Yes, Your Honor, but... I'll hear from Mrs. Henderson directly, Judge Walsh interrupted. Mrs. Henderson. Margaret stood, her confidence returning. Yes, Your Honor. The Morrisons repeatedly violated our HOA bylaws. As president, it's my duty to enforce those rules. And you felt $67,000 in fines was appropriate? Judge Walsh asked. The bylaws clearly state the fine structure. I didn't create the rules, I merely enforced them. I see, Judge Walsh made a note. And at what point did enforcement become harassment? You sent 47 legal notices in 3 months. You filed noise complaints for humming. You reported suspicious activity for grocery shopping. You threatened criminal prosecution for flowers. They were violations of our community standards. Judge Walsh's expression hardened. Mrs. Henderson, I'm going to ask you directly, and I remind you that you're under oath. Did you, this morning, tell Mrs. Morrison that you didn't care if she lost her baby? The courtroom went silent. Margaret glanced at her lawyer. I was speaking emotionally. Yes or no, Mrs. Henderson? Margaret's jaw clenched. Yes. I said it. But I didn't mean. Thank you, Judge Walsh cut her off. Mrs. Morrison, would you approach the stand, please? My wife walked slowly to the witness stand, one hand supporting her back, the other on her belly. She looked so small and vulnerable, and I could see the tremor in her hands as she was sworn in. Mrs. Morrison, Judge Walsh said gently. I know this is difficult. Take your time. Can you describe how Mrs. Henderson's actions affected you? Sarah took a shaky breath. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I was so happy when we moved into our house, Sarah began. It was our first real home. We'd been saving for years, living in a tiny apartment, eating cheap meals. All so we could give our daughter a good life, a safe place to grow up. Tears flowed freely, but she continued. I'm a kindergarten teacher. I work with children every day. I love making things beautiful for kids. When we moved in, I wanted to make our house welcoming. I planted flowers because I thought they were pretty. Because I thought our daughter would like them when she came home from the hospital. Margaret shifted uncomfortably, but Sarah wasn't looking at her. She was looking at Judge Walsh, and the pain in her eyes was heartbreaking. Mrs. Henderson came to our house that first time, and she was so angry, Sarah continued. I didn't understand why. I tried to apologize, tried to fix whatever I'd done wrong. But nothing was ever enough. Every day, there was something new. A letter, a complaint, a threat. I started being afraid to leave my house. Afraid to check the mail. Afraid to do anything because I didn't know what rule I might break next. How did this affect your pregnancy? Judge Walsh asked softly. Sarah's hand moved to her belly, protective and tender. My doctor put me on blood pressure medication. I started having contractions at 6 months. The first time, I was reading one of Mrs. Henderson's letters, and the pain was so sudden. David rushed me to the hospital. We thought we were losing her. Her voice broke completely. We thought we were losing our baby because of letters about where we parked our car. I laid in that hospital bed with monitors tracking my daughter's heartbeat, and all I could think about was those stupid flowers. Those beautiful flowers that I'd planted because I wanted our home to be happy. I wanted to go to her, but I forced myself to stay seated. This was her moment to be heard. I stopped sleeping, Sarah continued. I stopped eating properly. I was having nightmares about losing our house, about giving birth in poverty, about not being able to provide for our daughter. I'm a teacher. I make $42,000 a year. David was, I thought he was a county administrator. We're not rich people. The idea of a $67,000 judgment was going to destroy us. She finally looked at Margaret. But the worst part was this morning. When Mrs. Henderson told me she didn't care if I lost my baby. When she said maybe it would teach me a lesson. I'm carrying a human life inside me. A little girl who's going to be born in 2 months. And this woman looked at me and said she didn't care if my daughter died. Sarah's hands cradled her belly. What kind of person says that? What kind of person wants to hurt someone so badly that they wish death on an innocent baby? The courtroom was silent except for Sarah's crying. Judge Walsh had tears in her own eyes. Thank you, Mrs. Morrison, Judge Walsh said quietly. You may step down. I helped Sarah back to her seat, holding her as she buried her face in my shoulder. Our daughter kicked strongly between us, alive and fighting. Judge Walsh displayed the evidence on courtroom monitors. One by one, she went through it. The letters threatening legal action. The photos Margaret had taken of our trash can. The certified mail receipts showing 47 notices in 12 weeks. The noise complaint for humming. Then came the videos. Security camera footage showing Margaret screaming at Sarah in our driveway, her face contorted with rage. Audio recordings of Margaret saying, I'm going to make them suffer, and, they need to learn who's in charge. But the most damning evidence was Margaret's own documentation. Her notes revealed her motivations. Beside the entry about flowers, she'd written, make an example of them. Show new residents they can't ignore my authority. After an entry about a package, she'd noted, the wife is getting stressed. Good. Maybe they'll leave. Most horrifying, after Sarah's first emergency room visit, heard Morrison's wife was hospitalized. Pregnancy complications. Will continue with lawsuit regardless. Not my problem. The courtroom was silent as people processed the casual cruelty. Mrs. Henderson, Judge Walsh said, her voice cold. Do you have anything to say in your defense? Margaret stood, scrambling for an explanation. Your Honor, I take my responsibilities as HOA president seriously. Perhaps I was overzealous, but I was acting in what I believed were the community's best interests. Best interests? Judge Walsh repeated. You wished death on an unborn child this morning. You deliberately continued harassment after learning it was causing medical emergencies. You kept notes celebrating the suffering you were inflicting. Exactly whose best interests were you serving? Margaret's mouth opened and closed, but no words came. Let me tell you what I see, Judge Walsh continued. I see a petty tyrant who enjoyed exercising power over people she viewed as beneath her. I see someone who weaponized bureaucracy to torture a young couple preparing for their first child. I see someone who, when confronted with the harm she was causing, chose to escalate rather than show even the smallest shred of human decency. Judge Walsh looked down at her documents. Your lawsuit claiming $67,000 is dismissed in its entirety. Furthermore, Mrs. Henderson, you are permanently removed from your position as HOA president, effective immediately. You are banned from holding any HOA leadership position in any community in this county. Margaret gasped. Second, you are ordered to pay the Morrisons $150,000 in damages for emotional distress, medical expenses, and punitive damages. This amount is due within 30 days. If you fail to pay, I will authorize seizure of your assets. Your Honor, that's excessive, Margaret's lawyer began. Is it? Judge Walsh snapped. Mrs. Morrison required emergency medical care twice. She's on medication that could affect her for life. She's been traumatized. And your client told her she didn't care if she lost her baby. If anything, $150,000 is merciful. Judge Walsh continued. Third, I'm issuing a restraining order. Mrs. Henderson, you are to have no contact with the Morrisons or their child. You cannot come within 500 feet of their property. If you violate this order, you will face criminal charges. Margaret's face went from pale to bright red. This is ridiculous. You can't. I can, and I am, Judge Walsh said firmly. Fourth, I'm referring your conduct to the State Bar Association for investigation. There may be additional penalties beyond what I can impose. Margaret's lawyer tried to pull her back, but she jerked away. This is because he's a judge, she shouted, pointing at me. He's using his position to persecute me. This is corruption. No, Mrs. Henderson, Judge Walsh said coldly. This is justice. Judge Morrison documented your harassment the way any victim should, carefully, thoroughly, and legally. He didn't use his position to intimidate you. He recused himself and brought in an independent judge. Everything happening to you is the consequence of your own documented, recorded, and admitted actions. She leaned forward. You terrorized a pregnant woman. You threatened an unborn child. You caused medical emergencies and celebrated them. You had every opportunity to stop, to show mercy, to be decent. Instead, you escalated at every turn. You did this to yourself. Margaret's legs gave out, and she sat heavily, her face drained. For the first time, she understood what she'd done and what it would cost. Finally, Judge Walsh said, I'm ordering that all of these proceedings be made part of public record. Anyone searching Mrs. Henderson's name will find this judgment. Any future HOA, any employer, anyone considering doing business with her will know exactly what kind of person she is. You're destroying my life, Margaret whispered. Judge Walsh's expression didn't soften. You tried to destroy theirs first. The difference is that they were innocent, and you are not. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down with a sharp crack. As we walked toward the door, Margaret looked up at us. Her eyes were red, her face crumpled. For a moment, I thought she might apologize. This isn't over, she said instead, bitter and broken. I'll appeal. I'll fight this. I stopped and looked down at her. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt tired and sad that it had come to this. Mrs. Henderson, I said quietly, you had so many chances to stop. Every day for 3 months, you could have chosen kindness instead of cruelty. You could have apologized. Instead, you chose to try to destroy us, and when that didn't work, you wished death on our daughter. I put my arm around Sarah, feeling our baby move. You didn't lose because I'm a judge. You lost because you're a bully who finally picked on someone who couldn't be bullied. You lost because you documented your own cruelty so thoroughly that no reasonable person could deny what you'd done. You lost because you mistook power for authority, and cruelty for strength. Margaret looked away, unable to meet my eyes. I hope you learn from this, I continued. I hope you look at what you've lost and understand why. I hope you become a better person. But whether you do or not, you'll never hurt my family again. We walked out into the afternoon sunlight. Sarah was crying again, but this time the tears were of relief. 3 months of fear and stress were finally over. Is it really done? She asked, looking up at me. It's really done, I promised. She can't hurt you anymore. She can't hurt our daughter. It's over. Sarah's hands moved to her belly, and she smiled for the first time in months, really smiled. Did you hear that, baby girl? She whispered. You're safe now. We're all safe. 2 months later, on a sunny morning in early spring, Sarah went into labor. We rushed to the hospital, both nervous and excited and terrified in the way all first-time parents are. The labor was long and difficult. Sarah squeezed my hand so hard I thought she might break bones, but I didn't care. You're doing so well, I kept telling her. You're so strong. Just a little longer. I'm scared, she admitted between contractions. After everything that happened, I'm scared something will go wrong. Nothing's going wrong, I promised. Our daughter is strong, just like her mother. She's a fighter. She's been fighting this whole time. And she was. At 3:47 p.m., Emma Grace Morrison entered the world with a loud, healthy cry. The nurses placed her on Sarah's chest, and my wife burst into tears, happy tears this time. She's perfect, Sarah sobbed, staring at our daughter. David, look at her. She's perfect. I looked at my daughter, at her tiny fingers and her rosebud mouth, and I felt my own eyes fill with tears. She really is. Emma had Sarah's nose and my dark hair. She was 7 pounds, 3 ounces of absolute perfection. All the stress, all the pain, all the fear seemed to evaporate as I watched my wife cradle our daughter. You did it, I told Sarah. After everything you went through, you did it. She's here, and she's healthy, and she's ours. Sarah looked up at me, exhausted but radiant. We did it. We protected her together. We fought for her together. We're a family. The changes in our neighborhood over the following months were remarkable. With Margaret gone and the bylaws rewritten, the whole community seemed to exhale. Suddenly, there were children's toys in yards and gardens full of colorful flowers. People painted their doors in cheerful colors. The neighborhood went from looking like a sterile magazine spread to a place where families actually lived and loved. Mrs. Chen, an elderly woman who lived 3 doors down, came by with a casserole one afternoon. I wanted to thank you, she said, smiling as she peered at Emma sleeping in her carrier. Margaret fined me $3,000 last year because my arthritis made it hard to keep up with yard work. I was going to lose my house, I'd lived there for 30 years. After what happened with you, the new board reviewed all of Margaret's cases and forgave all the fines. You saved my home. Sarah's eyes filled with tears as she hugged Mrs. Chen. I'm so glad. No one should lose their home over something like that. Stories like Mrs. Chen's emerged constantly. A single father threatened with eviction because his night shift work violated quiet hours. A young couple fined for having a vegetable garden Margaret deemed unsightly. An elderly veteran harassed for displaying an American flag slightly larger than allowed. Margaret had ruled through fear, and now that fear was gone. People were rediscovering what it meant to be neighbors. Block parties started. Kids played in the streets. People actually talked to each other instead of hurrying inside to avoid violations. Our house, which had been ground zero for Margaret's cruelty, became a symbol of standing up to tyranny. The flowers Sarah had planted, those petunias that had started everything, bloomed bigger and more beautiful than ever. 5 years after the court case, I'm standing in our front yard, helping Emma, now 5 years old, plant flowers. She's chosen petunias, like her mother did all those years ago, but also sunflowers and marigolds and every bright, cheerful flower the garden center had. "Daddy, do you think these will be pretty?" she asks, holding up purple petunias. "I think they'll be beautiful," I tell her. "Just like you and your mom." Emma rolls her eyes. "You're so corny, Dad." I laugh and ruffle her hair. "That's my job." As we work together, digging holes and settling plants, I think about everything that's happened since that terrible day when Margaret Henderson stormed up this driveway. How fear became strength. How cruelty became community. How hatred became healing. Sarah comes out with lemonade, her belly swollen with our second child, another daughter, due in 3 months. Emma immediately rushes over to put her ear against Sarah's stomach. "She's moving," Emma exclaims. "She likes the flowers, I think." Sarah laughs, that beautiful laugh that I feared I might never hear again during those dark months. I think she probably likes her big sister talking to her. I take a picture with my phone, my 2 daughters and my wife, surrounded by flowers in the garden that started it all. It's a picture of victory, not over an enemy, but over fear itself. It's a picture of a family that was tested and didn't break. It's a picture of love persevering. That evening, as I'm tucking Emma into bed, she looks up at me with serious eyes. "Daddy, I learned about justice in school today. My teacher said you're a judge." "What does that mean?" "It means I help make sure people are treated fairly under the law," I tell her. "That's good," Emma says, nodding. "Because everybody should be treated fairly. Even mean people, right?" "Especially mean people," I tell her. "Because if we only give fair treatment to people we like, it's not really justice. Real justice means everyone gets treated the same way, whether they're mean or nice, rich or poor, powerful or powerless." "I want to help people when I grow up," Emma says, yawning. "Maybe I'll be a teacher like Mommy. Teachers help kids learn to be nice." I kiss her forehead, my heart swelling. "You're going to change the world someday, Emma Grace Morrison." "I'm going to try," she says. "Just like you and Mommy did." As I close her door, I find Sarah waiting in the hallway. She's been listening, tears streaming down her face. "She's amazing," Sarah whispers. "She's kind and thoughtful and everything I hoped she'd be." "She's her mother's daughter," I say, pulling Sarah close. "She's our daughter," Sarah corrects. "Raised by 2 people who know what it means to stand up for what's right. That's the real victory, David. Not the court case. Not even the justice we got. It's her. It's our family. It's the fact that we took something terrible and used it to build something beautiful." Later that night, I find an email from an address I don't recognize. The subject line reads, "Thank you from someone you never met. Dear Judge Morrison. You don't know me, but your story saved my life. 3 years ago, I was being harassed by my HOA president. The fines were mounting, and I couldn't see any way out. Then I saw the documentary about your family. I saw how you stood up to a bully. I saw how you documented everything and fought back. I saw that regular people could win. I did what you did. I documented everything. I got a lawyer. I took my HOA to court. And I won. Thank you for fighting back. Thank you for speaking up. Thank you for showing the rest of us that justice is possible. With eternal gratitude." I show the email to Sarah, and we read it together, both crying. This is what it was all for. Not revenge. Not even justice for ourselves. But the ripple effect of standing up to cruelty, of refusing to be silent. "We did make a difference," Sarah whispers. "All that pain, it mattered. We helped people we'll never meet. I think about Margaret Henderson, who I haven't seen in years. I hope she changed. I hope she found peace. But mostly, I think about my wife, who endured torture while carrying our daughter and came out stronger. I think about Emma, who learned that standing up to bullies is worth it. I think about the baby growing inside Sarah, who will enter a world where her parents fought for justice and won. I think about flowers, simple petunias that sparked a war and ultimately brought peace. How something so small and beautiful almost destroyed us, then became a symbol of our survival. And I think about justice. Real justice. The kind that doesn't just punish the guilty but protects the innocent. The kind that doesn't just end suffering but prevents it. The kind that doesn't just win cases but changes systems. That's the story I'll tell my daughters. Not a story of revenge or hatred, but a story of love protecting itself. Of courage standing up to cruelty. Of hope persevering through fear. It's a story that started with a pregnant woman being terrorized and ended with a family stronger than ever, a community reformed, and countless families finding hope in our example. It's a story that proves that sometimes, justice prevails. And that's enough. 10 years after the trial, I receive a call that changes everything once more. It's from the County Bar Association. Judge Morrison, we'd like you to speak at our annual conference about judicial ethics and personal integrity, the voice says. Your case has become a teaching example in law schools across the country. I accept, though with some hesitation. Standing before hundreds of lawyers and judges, I tell our story, all of it. The fear, the pain, the moment I revealed my identity, and most importantly, what came after. Justice isn't just about winning, I tell the crowd. It's about what you do with that victory. Sarah and I could have become bitter. We could have let Margaret Henderson's cruelty poison us. Instead, we chose to let it strengthen our family and our community. After the speech, a young woman approaches me. She's holding a baby, barely 3 months old. Judge Morrison, I need to tell you something, she says, her voice shaking. 5 years ago, I was that young woman being terrorized by an HOA. I read about your case online. It gave me courage to fight back. I won. And now. She looks down at her baby, now my daughter has a home. Because you and Mrs. Morrison fought first. I feel tears prick my eyes. Sarah, sitting in the audience, is crying too. This is why it mattered. This is why every sleepless night, every moment of fear, every tear was worth it. That evening, back home, I find Emma, now 10, and her sister Lily, 5, playing in the front garden. They're planting flowers together, Emma teaching Lily just as Sarah once taught her. Purple petunias are Mommy's favorite, Emma explains. She planted them when she was pregnant with me, and it caused a big problem. But Daddy fixed it. How? Lily asks, her eyes wide. He was brave, Emma says simply. And he protected Mommy and me. That's what families do, they protect each other. I watch my daughters, their hands covered in dirt, their laughter filling the air that was once heavy with fear. This garden, these flowers, this home, they're monuments to survival. Sarah joins me on the porch, slipping her hand into mine. We've aged, both of us. There are lines around her eyes now, streaks of gray in my hair. But we're here. We're whole. We won. Do you ever think about her? Sarah asks quietly. About Margaret? Sometimes, I admit. I wonder if she ever understood what she did. If she ever felt remorse. I hope she found peace, Sarah says, and I'm struck by her grace. After everything, she can still wish well for the woman who tried to destroy us. You're a better person than I am, I tell her. She smiles. No. I just learned that carrying hatred is heavier than carrying forgiveness. Margaret lost everything. I don't need to hate her anymore. I won. I have you, our girls, our home, our flowers. She has nothing. As the sun sets over our neighborhood, our vibrant, colorful, joyful neighborhood, I realize this is the truest victory. Not the court judgment. Not the money. Not even Margaret's downfall. It's this, standing on our porch, watching our daughters laugh, knowing that love won. That kindness survived. That justice, real justice, isn't just about punishment, it's about protection. It's about making sure that what happened to us can't happen to others. The flowers Sarah planted 10 years ago have multiplied, spreading across our garden and into our neighbors' yards. Mrs. Chen, now 90, still tends her garden 3 doors down. The single father Margaret threatened has since remarried, and his family thrives. The veteran flies his flag proudly. And somewhere, in law schools and courtrooms and living rooms across the country, people read our story and find courage. They learn that bullies can be beaten. That documentation matters. That standing up for yourself isn't just brave, it's necessary. That night, as I kiss my daughters goodnight, Emma asks one more question. Daddy, when I'm grown up, if someone is being mean to someone else, what should I do? I think carefully before answering. First, make sure you're safe. Then, document everything. Tell someone who can help. And remember, you have more power than you think. Your voice matters. Your actions matter. One person standing up can change everything. Like you did, Emma says. Like we all did, I correct. Mommy, me, Judge Walsh, everyone who supported us. Change doesn't happen alone. It happens when good people decide they've had enough of cruelty and choose to fight back with truth and courage. As I close her door, I hear her whisper to Lily in the next room, we're going to be brave like Mommy and Daddy. We're going to help people. And in that moment, I understand the final truth, Margaret Henderson didn't just lose a court case. She lost to the idea that cruelty is power. She lost to the proof that kindness is stronger than hatred. She lost to the reality that people, when pushed far enough, will fight back, and sometimes, they'll win. But more importantly, we didn't just win a case. We won the right to raise our daughters in peace. We won a community. We won the chance to inspire others. We won the knowledge that justice, though sometimes delayed, can prevail. And as I stand in the doorway of our home, looking out at the garden where it all began, I smile. Because those petunias that Margaret hated so much, they're blooming brighter than ever, a living testament to the idea that beauty, love, and justice can survive anything. Even tyranny. Even hatred. Even Margaret Henderson. And that, truly, is enough.